Good evening, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to another momentum causing version of Jaybird Watching as the Blue Jays storm into the 2022 playoffs. And I have basically what I'm going to say is my new look team here for the time being. I got two of my good friends, Ken Alfred, as you met last week, and then Jason Lyons joining us this week, all the way from the Vancouver side of Canada.
How's it going?
So we're spanning the whole nation now. We got a little bit of me in the U.S., East and West. Fellas, how are we doing this evening?
Take it away, Jason. I'll follow up after you.
I was just we were just talking offline a little bit about some of the excitement and just the things that have gone on in the last couple weeks. And, just as a Jays fan and as a fan of the game of baseball at such a high level, it is so much fun to watch. We go from Pujols hitting 700 to the playoff races to guys locking up to, we won't talk about Aaron Judge, to things like that. Where
who? I don't know who you're talking about.
But there's so much excitement about baseball. Yeah, like baseball's on such a high right now. And, we're looking at such exciting matchups going to playoffs on both sides of the AL and the NL. I mean, the NL's crazy as well. Like, amazing teams. There's 3 amazing teams that are going to go at it, 4, and 2 are going to make it through, and 2 should make it through. Like it's good ball all the way around. So yeah, I mean, I feel like it's as palpable on the West Coast as it probably is for the East Coast. I actually have friends engaging in conversation about baseball. And I feel like some of that is we have the Vancouver Canadians now, which is the Jays affiliate. They're 3rd down the rung from the Blue Jays, but I feel like that's caused a brand new stir in the city about the Toronto Blue Jays. You've got guys who we're going to games. I'm going with my kids. They're getting autographs, and they're like, "Dad, is this guy going to go up?" And funnily enough, we had one of the guys go up like the next day, and he's now in Buffalo. And there was talk about him possibly making the playoff roster. So I mean, it's cool to see it all the way around, and so just fired up over here.
Yeah. So to that point, not only have you obviously been swept up in everything with the Canadians being such the prevalent piece of the Blue Jays minor league system, all the main talent has been right there in Vancouver for you to be able to go to. And that, me being the only one that I've been to all the minor league establishments, even to the point where Bluefield, West Virginia was still part of the Blue Jays establishment and whatnot. That location I haven't been to, and I hear that's the one I'm really, truly missing out on, because everything at that ballpark has been so exciting. And the fact that you guys sell out every minor league game is amazing.
Yeah, it's quite a thing. I mean, it's, I feel like baseball had its time in the sun a while ago where it was really riding high, and people didn't really, people were just following it because there was really no other great stories going on in sports. And I feel like they've been lucky enough to hit this sort of secondary wave where there's no characters in hockey. There's no characters in the NFL. The NBA has characters, but I mean, it's, you're just walking a fine line.
Yeah, it's almost just characters.
Yeah. And so what I'm finding with baseball is, and we talked about this previously, you've got a guy like Mike Trout. Like, when do you ever hear anything about Mike Trout? Never. Anything bad, anything good, nothing. And the guy just goes out.
And unless you're going to MLB Network 24/7.
Yeah.
Like Craig does. Yes.
For me, you look at guys like Bo, and you look at guys like Kirk, and guys who are just quietly going about doing their business, and people love them.
They're like the quiet professionals. They're like the quiet professionals.
Yeah, I found out a really cool thing. Do you guys know what Kirk's nickname is?
I have some ideas, but go right for it.
So we did much research on this, and apparently they call him the Toronto Maple Beef, which could,
wow.
I mean, it could be the greatest nickname in all of sports history. That and Christian Okoye, the Nigerian Nightmare. I mean, that's a toss-up between those two.
A Toronto Maple Beef.
Yep.
Love it.
There you go. I'm calling it. I think that's Manoah approved. Just
I love that. Did you guys heard about that story when I guess that TSN reporter really made that negative remark against Kirk, and man, Alex Manoah just really went up to bat for him. That the guy basically just deleted his tweet after that. I don't even know if he's still around anymore, but he took himself off of that. So it seems like the Jays are a team. They're very loyal to each other, which is very, like you said, in some other sports, it's about the player. It's not about the sport. It's not about the team anymore. But with the Jays, it's all about the team, right?
Yep.
if one wins, they all win. That's who it is. Whoever's having the hot hand, they're going to run with it. But you're not going to hear them go on a pedestal and, claim, okay, I want X amount of millions to stay with the team. It's like no one talks about stuff like that. So it's really great to see.
Yeah. Even Vlad pushed that. I'm sure a lot of that was being politically correct and not wanting to deal with it. But part of that fact is that I think some of this comes to the point where Jason was making, that the minor leagues are so continuous and consistent that these guys have been together. I have Bo, Vlad, and Biggio's autographs on a Lansing Lugnuts hat. And guess where I met them all? Was with the Lansing Lugnuts. So
and we watched Manoah pitch.
You watched
Manoah pitch here 2 years ago. Like he was here and people were like, you got to go see this guy. And I think the most impressive thing about a lot of these guys, and we've had a lot of good players pass through here and guys that have gone on to other teams and all the rest of it. I still think with Manoah, one of the most impressive things was he was doing long toss in the outfield and he was throwing basically from center field to third base. And he kept walking over and kept extending the throw. And the guys on the other team were standing there. They stopped what they were doing and they were watching him. And he was ripping balls to the dugout on a line. And it was incredible to watch. And you could see right then, you were like, this guy is a special talent. This guy is going to make it at some level and he's going to kill it. He was a giant man. He was really nice.
Yeah. So to your point on that, Jason, I got to see Alejandro Kirk, his battery mate, in Bluefield. And that was the rookie level league that is now no longer part of minor league baseball, which to me is a shame, because there's a whole area of the country over here on the West Coast now that was part of the minor league system that is now all of a sudden just random independent baseball. And it was the whole Appalachian League, and most of the Blue Jays' current studs have come through that team. And I had the benefit of being there on a work trip, and I reached out to Zach Helton, their minor league announcer there in Bluefield, and I was like, "Hey, I'm actually gonna be in town. You want to grab a beer?" And he goes, "Just come up to the booth." I'm like, "All right,
come to the booth."
Yeah, twist my arm, see what happens. He's actually been on this show a plethora of times too. And to that point, he just goes, "If you're gonna pay attention to anybody tonight, when you see this thick gentleman walk up to the plate, you stop what you're doing." And I'm like, wow. I've heard the name, but I didn't have the, benefit of actually seeing any pictures or game footage of him or anything at that, because he'd only been playing in the league for a couple months. And it's only a 3-4 month window to be playing in anyways, in the short season rookie league that was. When Kirk came up to the plate, I'm not kidding, the few hundred people that were in that ballpark stopped whatever they were doing. The vendors, the beer people, the announcer, everybody just locked in on what he was doing. And I saw him hit this mammoth shot into the West Virginia wilderness over the batter's eye. And I'm like, he's going to be in the show very, very soon. And that following year is when the, COVID stuff happened, and he was brought in to be in the short season. And you guys remember hearing the story. He marched right through the minor leagues because it's like, hey, by the way, he can just rake at the plate, bring him up. We'll figure out the rest. And here we are, getting the benefit of watching Manoah and Alejandro Kirk merge into being one of the better batteries in baseball.
Exactly.
Like that's
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So now we're talking about Alek Manoah now. So what do you guys think about Alek Manoah? Is he Cy Young worthy or not, based on the season he's currently having?
I feel like he definitely is in the conversation. The hard part for pitchers in general is you've got guys who dominate. You've got 5 or 6 guys who dominate the league. And every now and again, you get guys who have really, really, really good seasons. You can't slip up as a pitcher anymore and expect to win the Cy Young. You can't. You have to be better than the best has been the year prior. You have to strike out more guys. You've got to have, more spin on your balls. You've got to have, more shutout innings, whatever the biggest stats are for that. Manoah deserves mention for sure, 100%. But I mean, it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll.
Yeah, I think so.
To that point, you guys know the competition he's going against, right? And I think in a normal pitching season, where we're not talking about the dead balls and the lack of offense and all the other nonsense that we've been talking about for baseball this year, I think Manoah is a sure thing. But you have a resurgent version of Justin Verlander being nothing short of like almost better than he's been in his career, and he's already won Cy Youngs. So he's got a 1.8 ERA right now through 170 innings and 175 Ks. What is that?
That's not a number.
You know what I mean? It's uncanny level of stuff. And you're talking that Manoah's having one of the best Blue Jays pitching seasons ever.
Yeah.
And he's at 2.24 ERA with 180 strikeouts and one less win. So,
Yeah.
You're talking that he's in the ballpark, but he's not in that, like, dear God, what the hell is happening?
Yeah, well, didn't Manoah also just pass Juan Guzman for most strikeouts with the Jays? I think at this point as well this season. I just want to hear that
at this
stat.
point, his career, I believe that was.
Yeah,
I don't think it was something like that. It was, yeah. And to talk about greats, Guzman is one of the better young pitchers in Blue Jays history.
Absolutely.
There was a piece of his career there that you talk about the first 5 years he was the Blue Jays and caught fire. He was really good, like
and mean
elite pitcher in baseball. Yeah.
Mean.
And I know, Jason, you were a big fan back in those days too. I'm sure you enjoyed watching Juan Guzman pitch just as much as anybody.
Yeah, and it's funny you would bring up Guzman. We were actually, after our hockey game the other night, a bunch of my teammates and I were talking about sort of those two glory years. And you could walk up and down that Blue Jays lineup and just be like, oh, remember him? Remember how good Rance Mulliniks was? Oh, remember how good Pat Borders was? Oh, remember Jesse Barfield? Like, and it was so much fun to have that conversation because it's interesting to me. And everyone will have this. Everybody has pieces they remember. Obviously, it's Joe Carter and there's that, but there's pieces that people remember, and they're like, oh, remember when, remember Kelly Gruber? Like how
I talked about him last week.
Gruber.
Yes, you did.
About him
and then
last
to that
week.
point, Ken also brought up that those years were so good that we had to put an acronym
So good.
to it. And Whamco with Ken.
Whamco. Mentioned that last week.
Yeah, I mean
I think
Ken, what were you mentioning about the before we came on the air? What were you mentioning about the a couple years ago they had they were charged up about a thing the Jays fans were trying to get
this is probably back in 92, 93. It was like the Catch the Fever campaign. I think they marketed it with Coca-Cola actually, and they had these really funky songs. Maybe we got to find it. Maybe that'll be our theme song in the future. But it was all about Coca-Cola advertising, but they were so hyped behind the Jays. And they had this thing. We had the Catch the Fever shirt, Catch the Fever hat. So, that's what I'm saying. They should bring back the Catch the Fever campaign. I don't know with Coca-Cola.
What's the campaign? Have you guys seen what the campaign is for this year? Rain in October or something like that?
Yeah, that's been something that's been the typical for the last couple of years. I think even they've that marketing campaign is latched on by MLB. I think at this point.
Yeah. So
where,
I think
last year I have a shirt. The last postseason one says "Respect Toronto" on it, and I actually had that shirt on last week. So
they, I think that I'm kind of I've got a branding mind, and so it's always rolling. That my one son was saying to me that we have some shirts that say it's Vladdy's time. And it's a good solid shirt, like it's Vladdy time. There's a bunch of other good ones, but I'm just hoping that the marketing, the Jays marketing is usually quite good on this stuff. Like they usually have a good couple of like we were thinking about like who's your Vladdy, or that's a good one. I will take all the royalties from that. Anyone from Fanatics or anyone that's listening, those are my royalties now. Okay.
Put on a shirt.
Yeah, it's on this show. We have proof. It's in the world now. It's even in the metaverse. Those people that want to be in there.
So we got the record of it.
Yeah, there we go. It's on the record.
So after the celebration, which is actually where we're going to go with this conversation, because obviously the Blue Jays did clinch a playoff spot on an off day the other day.
There we go.
There it is.
We were waiting for this.
We saw Vladdy. We saw Vladdy and everybody celebrating, and on that whole like hashtag thing, I was like trying to get hashtag do a Vlad dance going. Like do a Vlad dance, do a Vlad dance.
I got a question for Hazel May. What's she even wearing the poncho? She's not doing anything. There's pouring booze right over top of her head. Poncho was saving nothing.
Or that hat remember those hats that used to be an umbrella?
Yeah.
You ever seen those old? Yeah. I don't know why they don't wear that.
Get one of those.
That would have went so well with one of her normal everyday sundresses and whatnot that she usually wears. But she dressed accordingly that night and had, she is dressed down to the I'm going to get drenched in champagne conversation. I thought that was the coolest thing in the world, though, that they actually allowed the media and the Blue Jays fans into that celebration. And just to be this person, you even got to hear John Schneider F-bombs and everything because they weren't.
Let's also not discount the fact that that might be the nicest change room I've ever seen for any sport, hands down. Like, Are you for real? That's what these guys get dressed in before every game? Like,
yeah. Did you hear on the following day that Schulman asked Buck Martinez what it was like when they won in '85 and then when he won in Kansas City and all that kind of stuff? And he goes, "Oh, we had to pop the piston, basically."
Yeah.
So,
oh my goodness.
It's amazing how things change, and that's actually been the same locker room, I think, since 2015, 2014, when they did the last major renovation to the guts of the Rogers Center to turn it into an actual baseball establishment. Yeah. Those were the years where there was like, okay, sorry, Argos, you got to find a new home. Thankfully, they have all those kind of good things like that. Yeah. So, but I got baseball.
Go ahead. Correct you that, Craig. It's always going to be the Skydome to me, my friend. They can call it the Rogers Center, but no, it's a Skydome. I'm sorry.
That's the one thing I'm slightly dreading about the whole fact of the upcoming renovation, because the 500 level seats are finally not going to say Skydome on them. So there will be no more, because they're finally going to rip out all those seats on the 500 level and redo all that. But to that point, I saw what those pictures look like in the 3D modeling that they keep showing for the next level up or whatever the hell you want to call it. And it looks like that's going to be a fun time.
Crazy.
So what's the maximum capacity on that now? Like, is it still going to be 68,000 or something like that? Or what's the
I think
it goes up.
I thought they were losing like 1,000, but it was.
Oh,
it's pretty much
that's what it was. I thought they were adding 1,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I want what they're saying is 50 is a sellout these days. If they sell out all the flight deck is standing room only for a playoff game and stuff like that. So you're probably talking somewhere in the 48, 49 ballpark. But to that point, you have all those extra party zones in a playoff game. I'm sorry to say that place is going to be dumping.
Oh, I have a friend out here who has been a Blue Jays. I mean, I'm from Ontario, so preface it with that. But I have a friend who lives out here from Ontario. He still has Jays seasons tickets, so he flies out a handful of times a year. He sells all the rest of them. He goes with his daughter. He gives some to his daughter. So I spoke to him a couple of days ago. He's already prepped and ready to go. He's flying out. He knows of like 10, 15 other guys from out here that we all played baseball with. They all go. I mean, we were so serious that if those games were going to be in Seattle, we were going to go down there and I was going to wear my 49ers jersey and all my Jays gear and just bother everyone. Just no limit of the non-bothering at that point.
But I'm just going to say this to make the joke, because I didn't know you were a 49ers fan, and one of the gentlemen that was on this show, Brendan Panikar, giant 49ers fan. So I'm going to have to make sure I get you two on a chat in the near future here to talk some football and Blue Jays.
Man.
But go ahead where you were. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, with that being said, and with, Seattle being sort of as hot as they are at home right now, what do they've got? They've got a doubleheader on Tuesday. So they're going to extinguish, I think they were going to run with a guy who just came up from the minors and one of their really bottom feeder pitchers. And then it looks like they'll be going Castillo and tight pants McGee. Holy, somebody's got to get that guy some new pants. Regardless, but what do you guys think about that matchup? I mean, Ray has struggled his last three outings. Castillo is lock solid. The guy's a demon. He's throwing unbelievable stuff right now. But I mean, even though the Jays were 5-2 against the Mariners this year, is that right? I think so. I feel like I feel like this pitching matchup matches up really well with the way the Jays bats are going right now. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I just want to clarify that it was unfortunately us getting lost 5-2. Yes, because they swept us in their ballpark.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Ken.
No, I'll let you take this one on that one.
So, I'm wondering how much this is. To me, this is a tale of two things. The last time the Mariners saw us, we were at the lowest point of our game. They literally capitalized on every injury during that series that we had. None of the Pats were awake whatsoever. And now they're going to run into us where they have the hot hand. So if they are saying, no, we beat these guys, if they're on their heels at all, the Blue Jays have the chance to take them to school in a 3-game series.
Now, I don't know if you guys looked or not, but I took a look before we went on, and the last, even though the Mariners have won a number of their last games, they are not hitting very well. Their defense is not very good, and they're squeaking through these games. Like Ty France, I mean, that how many errors does that guy have? Like, I mean, he just keeps making mistakes at one. He seems like a really solid baseball player, but you know,
He usually is.
I'm starting to think that some of these young guys are going to have problems with the big spotlight. Like, I mean, J-Rod, he comes off like he's not going to have any problem with it, but you guys, we all know that very few rookies roll right through a playoff series and smash the ball around and do what they're supposed to do. There's a lot of panic. There's a lot of you know, Crawford isn't that old either, you know. You know, and I think that Suarez is really cooling off. Like, he was on fire, and now he's, what is he, like 220? He's only like 128 for his last 15 games or something like that. So, I mean, I feel like the Jays, with as hot as they are, because I don't know if you guys know how hot the Jays are for the last, like Teoscar.
Teoscar.
Ridiculous.
I mean, you brought up a good point there, Jason. Like, the Jays are hitting really well. I mean, just looking at some of the stats that they had in the last playoffs, obviously, we're expecting that they're going to be that. Like you said, I was worried about that as well, because looking back in 2020, I know it's not really the same thing, but looking at, you know, just like a Bichette, Vlad, how did they perform in the 2020 playoffs? Only one of them maybe got a hit, right? So, I mean, be it fair,
the only person that hit that whole series was Danny Jansen.
Yes,
just saying.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, right? So, you know, as long as we can maintain the momentum, hopefully they took the experience they had back in 2020 and continue the hot hand that they have right now. Because yes, it's a playoff time. It's not exactly the same as regular season time. And usually the time before, I didn't watch the Jays as much. I only watched it when they made the playoffs. Because to me, it's like, if you beat up a team 20-0 in a game, great. But if that's like the 5th game of the season, all right, sure. Even if that's the 60th game or the 100th game of the season, okay. But can you replicate that kind of performance when it matters, which is the playoffs? That is my concern, right?
And I mean, to that point, so even just to talk about a few of those guys, like, I don't know if you guys know or not, but Teoscar is hitting 393 in his last 7 games. His on base is also 393. That doesn't make any sense, first of all.
Not to mention, like, what,
his slugging.
Yes.
He's slugging at a .929. I mean, it's craziness. You know, Kirk in his last 30s, 252, 366 on base. You know, yeah. Jansen has been an animal for the last 30 games.
Jansen, I was going to make a mention of Jansen hitting the ball well the last few games.
This is his time of year, man. He's like our Mr. Like October.
He's only played 70 games this season. I remember he played 70 games the previous season. As long as if he's a healthy Danny Jansen, gives a lot of production here for the Jays. That's
I think that the other intangible with both Jansen and Springer's coming on as well right now is I feel like when you watch the camera cut to the Jays dugout, it's always Springer and Jansen talking to somebody. I mean, the guys can have fun in the corner there, you know, all of that. And, you know, it'll be really nice to see some of the guys come off the injury. I think, was anybody going to play tonight? I thought they were talking about.
There was a rumor, I think Lourdes might play tonight.
Okay. But I mean, even if they don't, I'm sure they'll get them in. But I feel
he didn't make the lineup, but that he might be active on the bench. I can't remember. I don't remember seeing any news about that before. But to that point, I don't care. He's going to get in the lineup at some point. And to that point, Raimel Tapia has been actually doing really well.
Unreal.
So you don't necessarily need Lourdes Gurriel Jr., but the fact that you can bring Lourdes Gurriel Jr. to a game for the playoffs, and even if he's your pinch hitter late in the game, he could run into one.
Yep.
Or he's the guy that rifles somebody out from left field halfway through the game, whichever way it is.
And I love that Whit Merrifield has finally, you know, been able to play, and he's we can all see what you don't lead the league in hits for 2 years and not be a good baseball player. You know, and I really liked, you know, I saw his interview the other night after the game when Vladdy gave him the dunk. And there was nothing better, I don't think, when he finished that interview and he just looked up at the crowd and he said, "I'll see you on Friday," and just ran in. And just the confidence of saying that at like with no pause, no, you know, nervous laughter, no nothing. He was deadpan serious. Yeah, we're coming back on Friday. We'll see you here. So that's awesome.
And speaking to that point, I don't know if you guys have the actual live game in front of you, but he has 2 or 3 RBIs tonight.
Yeah, Jays are up 3-0 already, top of the third right now. So, so far it's a no-hitter. Not to say anything. Yes, we're doing our part. And I was worried about the Orioles, though, because I think when I was looking at a little bit of how we were doing, it's almost like what was our record? I know we struggled in the beginning of the season with Baltimore. I think they took like 3 or 4 of the first 4 games or something, and we did kind of have a little bit more near the second half of the season, but it was always a very big battle with Baltimore. I always thought that was a team we would always going to, dominate, but this season we were struggling with them a little bit. It was like 50-50 with these guys.
Yeah.
I think
they're a hell of a baseball team.
Baltimore showed up.
You cannot. Baltimore reminds me a lot of Colorado in the NHL. You cannot get good quality draft picks for so many years and not be dominant. The Orioles have a stable of dudes they can run out. It doesn't matter what position. A friend of mine's son is in their organization, and this guy is a stud, and he can't even get a sniff. They are that good and that deep.
All of a sudden, really, really quickly. And honestly, I think they followed the Blue Jays formula to a T, other than the fact that they didn't find a bunch of ex-major leaguers kids.
Right. Well, and I think they're lacking the veteran presence of a Springer or a Jano or, that kind of thing. I mean, you've even got some guys that are, pitchers that have been around a bit and they've seen different, like Stripling. I was watching a story on Stripling the other night, and I guess he is still in a fantasy football league with Clayton Kershaw and a bunch of the Dodgers. And they're like, they have nothing but great things to say about this guy. Like Dave Roberts has nothing but great things to say about this guy. So a guy with that kind of jam, when he comes to your team and he just spreads it around and he's like, you know what, guys, I've been there. I know world champions. I've done this other stuff. It's so, for me, it really, brings that bar down to allow the entire team to not only be excited, because we can't muzzle the Jays. You can't do it. If you do it, they're not going to win. I don't care if it's bat flips and that kind of stuff.
Right. You have a few people that have been there. And I'm actually, to the point of the Blue Jays possible, making this some kind of a ridiculous run with the talent they have. I honestly think that the Baltimore Orioles are a bigger threat than the Yankees, Red Sox, and the Rays going forward over the next 3 years, because that fact is their timetable on this whole thing this season just got pushed right up to the front. And what they're going to do is go, wow, we really do have the talent to start doing this now. So they're going to go into this offseason looking at those free agent veterans that they could bring and inject to this youth to find the Hyunjin Ryu, the equivalent of George Springer to them. And they're going to be right there in the next few years, I think. And that's and they got all the money in the world to play with. I think they are finally done, I think, after this year paying for Chris Davis. Just saying.
Yes.
So if you didn't know that, Blue Jays fan, Chris Davis, being one of the biggest sluggers in Major League Baseball the last time they were in the playoffs with us in 2015, 2016, is still being currently paid, even though he was and cut like 2 years ago.
Yeah. Man, that was a meteoric fall for that guy. But
it finally came together.
I feel like
that was coming.
I feel like, the Orioles are very similar to Tampa right now. Like, Tampa might not be the best baseball team out there, but they are so athletic, and they'll grind you and grind you and grind you. They'll bunt 5 guys in a row. They don't care. They know they're fast.
Have the legs to do it.
Yeah, they know they're fast. They know they're strong. They know that they can throw you out. If you hit them a ball and you give them half a second, they're going to throw you out. So I feel like Baltimore is very similar. Their young guys are going to have to lead them through, but there are some interesting UFAs coming up, which may, Boston may take a big stab at. But I mean, I'm hoping that the Jays and, are smart enough to get ahead of the train on some of these guys that are coming available, because, you want to make sure that you're like, I love Chapman. I love the fact that Whit Merrifield signed for another year. But you got to make sure the cupboard's full. And I know their system is great, but you need current major leaguers to win major league games.
Yeah. Like you're
talking about bullpen and pitching is where that goes, but that's off-season talk. We have playoff baseball.
That is true. Although, can I ask you guys one question though? Why can't we just play Boston for the entire playoff run? Just throwing it out there. Like that, the last 3 games we had against Boston, I was like, wow, we were just, it's almost like batting practice almost.
They're bad.
They were just.
Did you see what I'm trying to find it right now because I know I retweeted it out on our Jaybird Watching Twitter account the other night, but I think we outscored them like 125 to like 15 or something like that for the season series. Now remember, part of that was the 28-5, I think was the score, dusting that they gave them in July.
How many errors were that again?
This close to being a major league record.
Yeah, like how many errors? Remember that game where it was like they were dropping the ball almost every inning almost. Was it 5 errors or something like that they had in that one game?
That was what opened up the door. And then the Blue Jays just flooded right through it.
Yeah. I feel like that was a big turning point in the season actually too. They didn't take their foot off the pedal. That Jano hit 2. Tapiel hits an inside the park grand slam. Come on.
Who does that?
Well, it's not as rare as you would think. There's been like 28 of them, which I was really.
You want to know how not as rare it is? That's the following evening. One of the Blue Jays minor leaguers did it for the Buffalo Bison.
Yeah. So it's. I mean, you don't see it all that often. But to track back to the playoffs. I mean, so when you guys are thinking about this Jays team going into to this series against the Mariners, because I don't want anyone out there to think that we're looking past that or that the Jays are looking past that. They need one to clinch to be at home, which I think is key. And I think again it's still 3-0 going into the fourth. Yeah.
No hitter. No, it's been broken, but that's okay.
So it's.
But to that point, Rios, which is going to be part of this conversation in a minute, it's good.
Yeah. So I mean, it's for me, I think that there's a bunch of keys that get the Jays by the Mariners without too much rocky water and without having to throw too many arms at them. What do you guys feel like is like the biggest keys for the Jays' success? In that small wild card series.
Then you want to go?
Yeah, I think as long as we can maintain the offense and maintain the great hitting we have, our defense has been pretty tight the last few games. If we can maintain that momentum, I think we'll definitely give Seattle. And it's not like I'm anti-Seattle. I'm just pro-Toronto Blue Jay. That's all.
But
look, Seattle gets their day.
I did home run tonight too. Yeah, there's your Seattle connection. So, our boy here is going to go on a road trip in a very, very short time frame. But I think that the offense is the biggest thing. But to that point, I'm really curious to see what they do with the number 2 game for the starter and the number 3 game if we have to get forced into it. To everybody's knowledge, Kevin Gausman is experiencing a cut. Apparently,
he had a blister on his finger. Apparently, right? Did they fix?
Yep. Yeah. So my guess is if he's got until Saturday to be able to let that heal, he's probably going to be ready for that. But in event he's not, that means Jose Barrios, who is pitching right now, ends up probably being the first man up, or Ross Stripling. To that point, my guess is for the 4 games or for this 3-game series that they're probably going to run Barrios out there, but who knows? Right now, I'd give you 50-50 because you are paying Barrios to be your ace guy right now as far as financials for the 3 guys.
Yeah.
But he's been the streakiest player and more extreme streaky than I'm used to. And I've seen him since he was playing down here in AAA in Rochester, New York. And so, because we used to be the Minnesota Twins minor league system. So I've had the pleasure of watching him for a long time. And this is the roller coaster that is Jose Barrios. He's going to look like he's an ace 75% of the time, and he's going to throw stinkers into it. They've just been very, very extreme this year, where they're usually a little closer to level, which levels out to like a 3.5 ERA or so. But this year, 5.29.
I know it's hit or miss with Barrios. It's like game by game. Like he's playing really good right now. I think we're still up 3-0, right? I just want to make sure I'm checking this.
Correct.
Yep.
You haven't jinxed him yet.
Yep, I haven't jinxed him yet. He's only allowed 1 hit, and I'd keep in mind I think we're only bottom of the 3rd at this point. So yes, of course I was kidding about the no hitter. Was only after the first couple of innings. So if this is more like 6th, 7th inning, he doesn't allow to hit, then that'd be a little bit more stressful to make sure he can actually hit it. But at this point, yeah, so far he's doing pretty good.
What do you guys think about the possibility of Kikuchi really I mean, he's been pitching well the last couple times he's been out. They've had him in. He's like a Swiss Army knife right now. They throw him in the third. They throw him in the sixth. They throw him in the eighth. I feel like he's coming around. I feel like his pitches are starting to hit the mark. I've always found him to be a bit of a Picasso. And, if he can paint those outside lines and he can paint, if he's got a good drop on that curveball or the off-speed stuff, he's unhittable. The problem is when it hangs.
About location.
Yeah, when it hangs, they bang. So, I mean, it's it's one of those.
I like that phrase.
Thanks.
There it is.
Trademark.
There it is. You're on a roll on that tonight.
I know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so I just think
Jason's our marketing group, by the way.
Yes.
There's major opportunity for the Jays on the mound if they do run into, and you see some of these games, like in history, you've seen some of these games when they start to get out of control, even though they realize it's a 3-game series, they're going to start going to the bullpen and they're going to hope they can tote the weight so they can get to the next day, throw a good starter at them and come away with a win. So,
to your point, I think that's actually where the value of Ross Stripling is going to come
100%.
Let's say, just for sake of shenanigans here, that let's say Gausman needs that extra day and he doesn't start until the 3rd game if needed, right? So that means you're going to throw Barrios or Stripling in that game too. Stripling is used to coming out of the bullpen, not so much Jose Barrios. So I think you go out there with him in mind to start that game with Ross Stripling there ready to be your ripcord if need be. I think that spells success in that game if you are set up for that situation. As much as I think personally that Ross Stripling should be rewarded with that game with what he has done for this franchise this season.
100%.
Absolutely.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
So but it's setting it up. And then for a regular 7-game series, he just gets a start.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So, and I know that there's some of those, like I know Pop and some of those other guys. I mean, I feel like they're so serviceable that, if they need to go to a bullpen game, the bullpen is strong enough right now that they can grind you through a bunch of innings. Like I said, the bats in Seattle aren't super hot right now. And if you really only have to worry about 2 or 3 guys in their lineup, then you can shred them up pretty good. Like, I mean, they didn't do a very good job pitching around Judge, but it's, you want to be able to pitch around J-Rod to be able to not have him hit a 3-run jack, because you've got to keep his enthusiasm low to keep, your winning going. I feel like, again, the Mariners are a similar team to the Jays where they've got young personalities. They've got, the city's on fire right now with Mariner fever. It's
the drought.
Yeah. I mean,
they were in a similar
drought in sports history. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's, there is a lot of talk of it, like on the West Coast here, the sports radio that we get out here is a blend of Seattle and Vancouver for no, other reason that we're geographically close to them. And I've noticed a ton of uptick in Mariners talk. They do, worry not Toronto.
Eliminated.
We do talk about the Blue Jays, on the radio and as a thing on the West Coast. We do. They're not the Leafs. They're the Jays. It's fine. So one of the things that I did notice, though, is that the city in general is a buzz. The Seahawks aren't doing very well, or they're doing okay. But the baseball has taken over, and you're just starting to see it. Like, I'm going to get my sons from school today, and there was a kid with a J-Rod jersey on. Like, where would you see that 6 months ago? You wouldn't, So it's cool.
First onto the scene in Major League Baseball as the kid 2.0, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty rad. Like I'm fired up about some of the other guys too. Like, I mean, like Bo Bichette for the last, for September. What, September? Like, I mean, is it the great?
It's about time it came together, because you could see the glimpses that were coming. That were, maybe this is it. Oh, never mind.
Nope.
Maybe this is it. Never mind. And then, bam! Blue Jays monthly record for having the most hits in September. I think it was 41, 44, something like that.
Unbelievable.
So,
he was on a
to that point,
straight tear.
So he won the Player of the Month award based on that performance, and was also a Player of the Week. And then we also have the reigning AL pitcher of the month in Alek Manoah. That's part of what's going to your lineup for game 1, 2, and 3 right there. So this is what the freaking Seattle Mariners get to look into. They get red hot freaking Bo Bichette. They get Vlad, who has become into what I've been trying to coin for years is Vladdy Vicious.
Vladdy Vicious.
That's a good one.
When he hits the ball, it hurts. When he hits the ball, it hurts. That's all I can say.
Did you see the home run he hit the other night? That was the missile. That was apparently his hardest or second hardest hit ball.
He hit the ball like it owed him money. That's what basically it is.
Yeah. And it would hit the stands in the Sky Dome, and just I hope there wasn't a kid in the way. That's all I was hoping. I'm like, please be an adult or no seat. Please be an adult. This thing is buried probably right into a seat in the Rogers Center and is probably stuck there.
So let me ask you this, guys. So for this series in Seattle, if you had to pick one player that you expect is going to be like the MVP of that series for the Jays, who would that be?
Ooh, Fred, you want to go? It's like you're reading ahead to me. Have you been watching the shows while you've been trying to get invested on this whole thing? We used to do this bit called Picks to Click, kind of a la the White Sox great announcer, Hawk Harrelson. And the idea was to pick who was going to be, like, out of our collective group, who we thought was going to be the best player in Blue Jays baseball for the next week. So I guess we're just going to cheat and jump to the end of the show now. Jason, it's your first week on the show, so how about you go first?
All right, I got to just take one, right?
Just pick one.
Correct.
Okay. So,
and we're just pick the click is specific for the wild card series.
Yeah, just for
so I'll tell you who and I'll tell you why. So it's going to be Chapman, and he is built for this. He is built for this time of the year. He is the best defensive third baseman the Jays have ever had. He's rock solid, unbelievable. Sorry, Josh Donaldson, he's way better than you are.
And to that point, I think defensively, he even gives Scott Rowland a run for his money, who, in my opinion, we didn't get to see him the best of his defense as Blue Jays fans, but that man has won how many Gold Gloves? It should be in the Hall of Fame. You got Matt Chapman. That's better than him.
The other thing that Matt Chapman brings, the intangible that Matt Chapman brings, is he can hit the baseball everywhere. He can hit it. He can hit it from post to post. He can hit it in the gaps. He can get you a bloop single. He can smash one out of the park. He has great at-bats. He'll eat 50 and 16 pitches at an at-bat and just smile about it. And he doesn't care if he strikes out or whatever, because he knows he's drained. And he knows that he's shown the other guys that are coming behind him what the curveball looked like, what the changeup looked like, what this looked like. And you watch him go back into the dugout. He goes right back in, and they're immediately talking about it, where some guys are quiet. Springer and him. I would go Springer, but I think that's a bit token. I'm going Chapman, and he's going to be the MVP for the wild card.
Boom. There it is, locked in. Ken, you brought up the question. I'll let you go first, seeing I'm technically hosting. I don't know. It's been a good back and forth between all of us.
My thing is that I think I'm not going to go, like you said, the stereotypical, like, Springer, we're going to go with Bichette, we're going with that. I'm actually going to pick Jensen, just because I think at this point when he's actually playing, he's actually there. So I think he's going to take this momentum games. And I think the Mariners might overlook him. I think the Mariners are worried about our top three, the first and the batting order. They're gonna throw it. They're all gonna aim their pitches at, all right, what are their weak spots for Bichette and Vlad and all these guys? Just they're worried about those three. But we got such a big depth of the roster. But I think that Jensen wants to say, okay, I've been injured, but you know what? I'm hitting the ball well lately. I think I'm gonna take it to shine. I think they're overlooking him. What about you, Craig?
Yeah, and to that point, I think you guys are all agreeing that it's always not the biggest guy that comes up in these kind of situations that actually comes up and be the playoff hero, right? Blue Jays fans obviously remember the Kelly Gruber home run, the Ed Sprague home run in 1992. It's a team contribution. The fact that you got a gutsy performance from Pat Henkin in 1993 in the World Series, the things like that. To me, this has what has become the legend of Whit Merrifield to all Blue Jays fans. And I honestly wonder, especially watching him play over the last week, how much he carries this momentum that he's carried the last few weeks. Now that he's got a job to be the second baseman, basically, because of Santiago Espinal's injury and whatnot, he's emerged as that guy. He is going to be starting at second base, and there's nobody that's going to fight him, I think, for that, regardless of who is healthy or not at this point. Yeah. He has proven to be a leader on this team, and he's proven that he is going to hit like this. And this is actually to most people's surprise, this is actually the first postseason appearance he will have, which everybody remembers the Kansas City Royals. And he was a Royal for a million years. Wasn't he on the 2014, 2015 teams? No. He was in 2014, apparently this close to a call-up, and he thought he was going to get it because he was batting like 243 or some ungodly video game number in the AAA level for the Kansas City's affiliate. And then in 2015, he got the call. You're coming up for the playoffs. And then apparently later that day, the Royals said, you know what? Don't worry about it. Ouch. Right?
Yeah.
So he's hungry as hell for this opportunity. And I think that's why we're getting the best of what he's got left in the baseball tank for this season right now. And a lot of that was, I think he needed a fire lit under his ass a little bit. And that's what he got coming to Toronto. Yes, you're on a playoff team, but he didn't have a place to fit in on this lineup at all. No. Everybody
but
was.
He can.
Go ahead.
To your point, he can play two. He can play all three outfield positions. I mean, he can DH. You know, like I might change my pick. I'm just kidding. But I do like him a ton. I do like him a ton. And I'm hoping, I'm hoping that that he does get his run in the playoffs. That's my hope. You know.
Yep. So, and that's why I'm picking him, because I just think he's a steamroller at the moment. And worst case scenario, he is somebody that is a catalyst at the bottom of that order to get it back up to Vlad and company. So I think that's why I'm picking him, because I just think there's something there. It's a gut feel. I think he's going to come and do something like what Jansen did to Ken's pick in the last time the Blue Jays had the playoff pick. Jason, who did you mention again? Just so I'm going to be that guy and write it down.
He said Chapman.
Matt Chapman.
So, because this is what we were doing during the regular season. I was writing it down and keeping score of who was winning and whatnot. And Brendan Panikar, my buddy, ended up winning the trophy this past season. Before obviously we all got too busy, and I had to enlist some more help.
His losses are gained there, right, Jason?
Yeah.
There we go.
To that point, Brendan is still a very good friend of mine. You will get a chance to talk with him because he wants to come on the show, especially for playoff chat. So he will be back in the near future, along with my other two cohorts, and Adam Corsair and Chris Key. So to that point, temporarily gone, not forgotten. We'll be back to hang out with us at some point in what is to become the Barroom Blue Jays chat.
The best.
But to that point, pleasure having you guys on the show so far. This has been a great chit chat and whatnot, but we are getting near the point that Mr. Lyons had a hard stop. So I wanted to be able to chit chat with you about one last thing. And then, like I said, we kind of talk predictions and whatnot. I give you moments to shine so you guys can plug yourselves here, and then we'll do our normal and with 2 claps and a Ric Flair. So, and did you guys notice the history outside the Bo Bichette stuff that happened the other day on October 2nd in Toronto Blue Jays baseball?
No,
I'm okay.
I got you stumped. Yeah. This is what I stumped the rookies. Yeah. Here's your curveball.
I'm the casual dad. What are you talking about? But okay, let's hear it.
So what happened for the first time in Major League Baseball history, not just in Blue Jays history, Toronto or Major League Baseball history, 2 Canadians closed out and won a ball game. So Zach Pop won the game the other night against the Red Sox, and Jordan Romano closed it out.
I remember. I think they were saying that it came close to happening with Paxton and somebody else when he was Mariner. I feel like
Mariners, yes.
So very interesting, but it's I love I love when the Canadians roll. Like, I mean, it's one of my favorite things, especially in baseball. Like, we have such a finite small season, and to imagine guys coming out of places in Canada and making it to the majors, it boggles my mind I would love to go back.
Especially the level that those two are on. Right now, you can make the argument that Jordan Romano is going to get Cy Young Award votes. Because him and Emmanuel Clase of the Cleveland Guardians, I'm still having trouble remembering that one, are the best closers in baseball. There you go. Yes. Okay, Jobu.
Yeah, Jobu.
I just love that they used to give bobbleheads of Jobu out at minor league baseball games for the Indians at the time. So it was fun stuff. But to that point, how missed of an opportunity was that? You could have named something around one of those movies with the Cleveland Guardians. I was saying, call them the Cleveland Wild Things and get a little, make the Wild Ricky Things. Vaughn logo with the, instead of the, just, it could be his arm back here throwing the baseball with the lawn rims.
Is that series of movies the only series of movies about an actual team with fictional finishes? That year never happened. That year where the Indians did what they did and lost, and that never happened.
I don't think so.
And no one ever said, it's odd. There's movies about other sports teams, but none of them are not true to what happened. It's a story about what happened to that team. It's not like they made a movie about, the Pittsburgh Steelers winning a Super Bowl that they didn't win. I find it weird. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Don't get me wrong. I love the movie.
The only ones I can think of on that whole thing, Jason, are the ones that are on the little kid level, Rookie
of the Year.
Yes, right.
Obviously, the other one that I was telling you, Ken, about last week, Little Big League. You didn't see a kid manage a baseball team and near take them to the playoffs, things like that. So, but to that point, I think for something that would have been an adult level movie, I agree with you. That's probably a true statement that's the only one that was it's based in reality, but it's not real.
Yes.
It's not like the movie 42 or something.
No.
Or Moneyball or anything like that. So, but I thought that was a really cool moment in Major League Baseball history that I wanted to make sure we had a moment to chit chat and talk about. So, other than that, Ken, obviously you're new to the show. I want to make sure you have a moment to shine. Tell people where you can find you on your other podcast. This is your moment to shine, your shameless self-promoting moment.
Shameless self-promoting. All right, guys. So I have the SME Stories podcast on all your podcast players, all about small businesses in Canada. Listen to me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that sort of stuff. I'm also the voiceover narrator for the Lone Star Group Plus on YouTube. So if you look at some of their videos, just like and subscribe there as well. You hear this awesome voice there as well. So listen to me there, as well as catch me obviously on this podcast as well. I'm loving this thing. And even though it's my second episode, a lot of fun. I was overwhelmed in that first one. I'll be honest, Craig, but felt a lot more comfortable on this one. There we go. Maybe it's the hat. It's the hat. Yeah. That's what it is.
There it is. I love that hat too, by the way. It's just subtle, simple, all Canadian.
Wait for the jerseys next episode. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, there it is. I'm going to have to go retro and just be like, yeah, that's right. I have the one that's the big maple leaf behind the Blue Jay, things like that. So, so Jason, I know this is your first episode on the show. Obviously, you have had a great time with us. I have a strange feeling.
Yeah.
So this is your moment to shine and give the Blue Jays fans a little bit about yourself.
I wanted to thank you a ton for giving me the opportunity to do this. I was on your radio a long time ago, and I will say that it's one of the things I miss most was doing that job. I loved it. I loved the musicality of it. I loved every single part of it. And as we all know, real life gets in the way sometimes, and you can only pay your rent with rock and roll T-shirts and ramen noodles for so long before you actually have to get a real job. Not saying that guys and girls on the radio don't have a real job, but they know what it's like.
You've been listening to George Thorogood way too much, haven't you? Get a haircut.
They know what it's like to slug it out in Fort McMurray and Yale, BC, and stuff like that. But for me, if I was going to selfishly, plug anything, check out Lynn Valley Little League Baseball. These guys are killing it. They're awesome. North Shore Winter Club Hockey. And, I'm just happy to be a part of it and hope to continue doing it.
Yep. To that point, I have a strange feeling we're going to be talking schedule a lot over the next few days here and whatnot, because we really don't know what the Blue Jays legit schedule is at this moment, but we want to make sure, Blue Jays fans, that we are right here with you. We are your one-stop shop for all things Blue Jays barroom related chat. So to that point, I've said it before, I've said it again, this is the place where we all celebrate and pop champagne together. It's the place where when things are going bad, you'll hear the peanuts banking off the TV. There it is. So Blue Jays fans, make sure you check us out on YouTube for our live shows. I will keep keep you updated on when the next one's going to be. But more than likely, we're still trying to shoot for the Monday, Tuesday thing. Mr. Lyons' schedule here is mostly Mondays free. So Ken, as long as that works out with you, that might just become the norm.
That might be the norm for me. That's good. I like Mondays.
It'll make Monday less dreary.
Yes. Yeah.
So to that point, fellas, like I said, make sure everybody listens to us on our live shows on Mondays, and we're going to do something around the playoff dates, depending on when off days and games are too. Might be just Twitter space things, so you can join in and actually converse with us. And make sure you do join us during our live show. I saw there was a good 20 some odd people on during the day. I didn't hear one word out of any of you. Come on, join in. We want to chat.
My wife, Mrs. K, she's probably just watching. Just waiting to hear, just to mess with me when I come out.
So, and then when you don't catch us on the live show, wherever you can get your podcasting pleasures from, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, any of that stuff, we are there and we are here for you. So, to that point, you guys ready for the typical send off? I'll count to 3, 2 claps. Ric Flair. Ah.
All right.
1, 2, 3.